week 5 by Enrique Galicia. So to give you an introduction about Enrique, Enrique is an architect. He has also done PMP. To give you about the students that he has trained on is like he has trained more than 5,500 students, and he has almost more than 48 plus courses on the Udemy as well. To tell you about the technical assets of what Enrique is, he is an Autodesk Revit expert, AutoCAD, Inventor, Civil 3D, Studio Max, Dynamo, even the refinery, Format, InfraWorks, and the list is actually very long. So I'll try to cut it short, and I'll invite Enrique to take this session on automations on BIM using Dynamo. Yes, Enrique.
Yes, hello. Hello, everybody. Okay, then really nice to meet you. Really nice to be here in this session. So let me start sharing my screen.
Sure.
And today's session is about talking about Dynamo BIM as a way of automation processes, but also a way of modeling and changing the game settings. So, as Adnan has already introduced myself, I'm just getting it's certified trainer silver. So as I was saying, I have been working with BIM for 12 years, and I have more than 200, 250 scripts on Dynamo. So just a general overview for everybody, just BIM, it's a series of process of developing construction projects. BIM, Revit as a BIM modeling tool gives the facility to create 3D models, but also is one of the only ones that has an open API. An API means that it's letting the software to make it the way you need it, so you can modify it and change it. And because that was difficult at the early beginning, Dynamo became part of it. Then the other thing we need to understand is that technological trends go towards artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computation, Internet of Things, and we need a lot of computer bonding to VR and ER. So because of that, handmade models may become obsolete in some kind of, and we need to translate our processes to create a programming generated models, so they can become faster, they can respond to technological trends, market needs, and work demands. So just going to check. Yeah. So as a starting point, key component of Revit is that you can adapt the type of modeling, because you can create families whatever you want it. You can change your sets, but also this adaptability of the API. The API is this platform for programming. So you can accelerate modeling on speed, getting better quality and control through Dynamo. And for that purpose, that's the reason we have a lot of courses. So they can help you test, change, and see how everything goes, because nothing is written on stone. So just a little comparison. If we're using just Revit as modeling, we're doing handcrafted models, because walls will go single ways, windows need to be placed one by one. If we go on an industrialized way by using Dynamo or programming tools, what we're gaining is that we can have delivered projects faster. We can do it precisely using millimeters, almost up to tenths of millimeter. We're changing uniqueness of a project to an artificial intelligence processes of BIM. We can avoid mistakes while adapting requirements, and working with people to connect with machines. We're going to change it. So because of that, we will be taking the requirements as part of the way of working, and then connect with people using machines. So I'm just setting some samples. The first logo we saw here, it's the one that is from geometry, that it's the basic core of Dynamo. But from then you can also use it for analysis. Let's say you want to review everything that is on the model, and you want to take it from another perspective, so you can find out which parameters have been placed, which one are right, which one has a problem of greeting. Also, you can change visibility, graphics, things that have different characteristics, and you want it to be just one single way, the way the BEP is planned. You can have it automated on several types of routines. Also, you can improve visibility because, as you have seen for now, if you are familiar with Revit models, it depends on how the view is letting you see the elements. But if you're using Dynamo, you have a complete X-ray machine or a way of feeling things completely about their data being placed within their geometrical outputs. Then as well with the geometry, you can do any type of geometry that you wanted due to the flexibility of Revit and using components, parameters, settings. It doesn't matter really how complex the figure it is. It can be changed. It can be adapted to any type of surface, any type of modifications, any way of creating things, even they are just architectural, and also to give you a perspective of construction of how the elements can be taken quantities from. All these videos are available through the YouTube channel Practical BIM as well. And I think it's one of the main components of all this methodology to have questions and to challenge ourselves to see what else can be done by creation. So because of that, computer machine learning will help us mix with BIM capabilities and will certainly deliver different types of engineering. So just there. For instance, here we're creating bridges and just the analytical settings, so we can share it to robot interface, share it as a SAT, which is for Tecla, or other type of civil engineering. And then with that, we can give it back for construction, get the elements in shape and size. And from there, keep on. So then, to have a real perspective, developing times using Dynamo before using the API, it's 10 times faster. Once the solution is built, it changes the way of work. So it perhaps modify the way people is working with your system and will change the needs of the project. The software response are required, so you can review what's happening within the idea you're planning. So then start going programming now. It's a great opportunity because we are just in the edge of becoming of a cloud generative design and artificial intelligence solutions going through BIM. So this is a great opportunity to get these skills, and having these skills will certainly change in the future going on a better connection path. So there's no limit for extension in the technology. And if you are depending that Autodesk will modify something on their software, you're thinking about a period of 1 to 3 years for a specific solutions, and it depends on the critical mass they achieve to see if that's actually a requirement. If you're using Dynamo, you can find that solution in a couple of hours. Some other examples of automation, you can use it for outputs. With those, you can create your views, your plans, your elements, and automate all those mundane tasks that require time, people, and resources. And by doing that, you can write, change, create filters, create visibility elements, create parameters, a lot of things that may change. So then also an important process is how to learn it. Dynamo has millions of nodes. So my recommendation is go as spaced as possible and then have a specific requirement to be fulfilled so you can solve that solution, create your capabilities, and test yourself. In this case, not only for the courses, it's set specific workflows, but also for having the abilities to check, to modify the code, to review, to test, to improve performance. And Dynamo, it's an exponential benefits factor. You can use it for modeling. That means that you can have in between, you don't need the code to be completed. You can mix modeling with other things. I'm gonna see something like. So if you have problems matching the nodes, filling the geometry, you can have your own scripts that find out those geometries, connect, fill the gaps, and then create that family using your same parameters or options. We're talking of a different approach of getting better models. Then also for civil engineering or complex taxes as rebar modeling, there are a lot of libraries as well, nodes that can help you achieve that approach. So that means that you can actually get your config by the requirements of the project and then use some Dynamo scripts to reply those characteristics for modeling. So just gonna show some image from here. Yes. So in this case, I'm showing you just some simple interface, selecting a framing, selecting a face of rebar, and then you are creating your own way of working for creating those rebars instead of doing them manually. And by that, achieving that the same results will be replied on every single project you're working. Talking about architectural, we have samples for gypsum boards, samples for framing, wood framing. If you're having things within gypsum and you need to set up all the structural inside, getting the MAP installations as well. For MAP, if you're using the ductwork or the net settings used by AutoCAD Plant or AutoCAD MEP, you can also have those same results with Dynamo, having created supports, getting connections within the MEP installations, getting as well some routing solutions going forward to that. So I'm just going to see if I have some other image. So you can use it for filtering, you can use it for systems connection, you can use it for having a normal standard, so all the model conduits, ducts, pipes are close together enough so they can work as one, have the same heights, diameters, etc. You can use it for bayonets. So you're having the position of the element and then you can complete them so they can follow up that pattern. Really interesting thing happened for about projects. This is a sample of another course that it's set to use to create the registers that you have on existing conditions. So perhaps you have a big project that has a lot of registers placed. And within Dynamo, if you have those schemes or schedules of how the connections go with the diameters and their settings of installations, you can create your complete model just by data. And instead of creating these lines that have a lot of slopes that may be impossible to create on Revit just by hand, you can do it by code. And that can help you a lot to do it. For instance, instead of having a model of 6 weeks, you can have it in perhaps 2-3 days using data without problems from the schemes or the schedules. And that actually means a game-changing activity. Because of that, you can use that as an existing model, make modifications, and then create a new one. Having that complete, then we also have this, that it's a Dynamo time travel. That's set for the problem that you have if you want to change from version 17 to 19. It's really known that actually they're working on 2020. You can work on 2020, but the standard may be around 2018, 2019. So if in the BEP, that it's the BIM execution plan, you're supposed to work 17, but your company goes 19, you may use Dynamo as a pivot, so you can change elements from versions. Even Revit can do it. You can get the elements, get the complete data, and rewrite it on the new version, on the previous version or the forward version, whatever it suits better. So I'm just gonna go for these ones. We still have some brown. Then what would be the Dynamo conflicts? Not everything is sweet as it sounds. There's a lot of things about versioning because it's going 2020. You also have the Dynamo version that it's going 2.0, that you also have the versions of the nodes, and depending on the developer, if they haven't updated their database, there may be some issues. So you need to be aware of how they work. So you can get lost and feel overwhelmed of all that content, but don't get too scared. Just Google it, change it, check, and that will help you enhance your working pattern. There's a hard entry barrier from 0 to hero. So being confident with Dynamo, it takes time, it takes a lot of practice. But once you have crossed the gap and you feel confident enough to find solutions, you can use it. And also, it requires you common language requirements. That means that you need to have a proper way of working. You need to have a BEP. You need to set things some way. It doesn't matter if they are right, but at least will help you improve the way you're working with BIM. So just some notes. It says MEP modeling 2,000 elements in 4 hours instead of 40. Architectural creation of elements. Revit, time shortened from 4x to 10x. So it depends on the script you're using it and how efficient it is. But actually it increases, it saves a lot of time and makes models faster. Quality assurance improvement as well. You can check all parameters, all characteristics, use it for different purposes. And infrastructure is not just part of Civil 3D, you can use it for other elements. So you can use it for civil engineering, connecting Civil 3D with Dynamo, and also mix it with ground for creation of roads, landfills. Patterns, building paths, setting topography. You can use it for anchor creation. So you can set up how it's the resistance of the field going to work. Some things that you can not do it if it's not by coding, because you will need to have positions on something really specific and you only have the actual site. Also, a lot of things working around masses and elements. This is a site mechanics analysis. So if you mix site mechanics with a proper designing plan, you can use Dynamo to check how efficient it may be on excavation, how cost effectively it will run, how things will get improved. So you can see we have in this image different types of soil. And if the project is placed in one position, will be really different from another one, and that can change the complete project. So also some developing about QTOs. Common problem becomes when people ask, okay, I want to get a quantity, but doesn't have a proper processes to get those quantities. So you can use Dynamo to automate those, and just by single clicks or by an Excel file, get all your schedules in one click. I believe it's, you can check it, this one. And a lot of things going between mixing Navisworks, Revit, Dynamo patterns for clash detection. So you can use Navisworks for creating those clash points, place them, modify it with Dynamo Player, and then modify the way they are setting within the structure, send reports, create the views. I mean, options are limitless. For simulations as well, instead of just linking elements one by one, you can use Dynamo to automate that process, set up a naming convention, and then create results that goes something like I don't know if it's getting too much of a lag, but you can see those type of simulations that are entirely Dynamo based. And what they do is that you can use it on Navisworks, you can use it on 3D Max, but also you can have it launch up to Unreal Engine and then use it for VR, use it for AR, mix it with whatever you want it. So it's not about what the software actually do, but how can you set some things, and Dynamo, it's a complete playground. It's completely open for any type of possibilities. Also, there's this is a propose for having time tracking. Even you are using a BIM platform software, it can help you achieve quality settings, so you can read if you're using perhaps i2, if you're using Vico, if you're using other tools that need some coding or some settings, you can use Dynamo as a preset to create your simulations, create your settings, also program it to iOS interface. I don't know, it depends on how the company works, which tools they are used, but you can connect with Dynamo. And from there, I will recommend you, if you want something much more robust, you can use it with the Revit API. Series going to gaming engine elements. If you want your client or whoever is part of the processes to use it on an interactive way with some materials instead of rendering, just leaving it, or you want to change it to VR, you can use Dynamo as well. Export it, change it, have naming conventions, etc. And lastly, of this part of the tour, it's the generative design, that it's going deeper on how analysis is being made for elements, for facade analysis, changing the way it will work with windows, the settings of parapets and things like that, or also on site placement of the analysis proposed to see where it fits better, how is the proportion, getting much more better cost-benefit analysis. So the best learning path, I will say, it's like getting needs or getting ideas on where to start, getting proficient within the nodes, and from there start continuing. I'm also developing some things that are quite interesting about having scription as gamification of the scripting that can help you not feel conflicted about how to get the code, but actually how to solve problems by playing. There's also one special course that it's about escape rooms. Escape room, it's when you're trying to get things solved. So if you have some nodes, some solutions, you may use them to solve a problem, and with that you are playing, but at the same time you're learning how to code. Use it as slams or competitions that can become everything much more a community, because there are a lot of nodes. It's easier to ask someone which node can help, and at least you will need hours of working to get it, but it will be worth it, because instead of using those hours to do the same tasks, you will be creating new ways of working, new paths. So just have some giveaways. I've set this special site that it's www.0001.com.mx diagonal BIM series.html if you want to follow any track. And if you have any questions as well, you can contact me, contact Adnan, and I believe that would be around it. Adnan, are you there?
Yes, Enrique.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So how are we on timing?
Yeah, we can take over the questions as of now. Actually, there's a question from me itself. So like we have the design scripts in the Dynamo, and we also have the Python scripts. So can you tell us like what's actually the difference between the design scripts and the Python scripts?
Yeah. Well, talking about Dynamo, design script, it's the basic coding settings for creating those by code. So that means that even though you have a lot of, let me see if I can get some image here. Sure. Yeah, yeah. No, it doesn't matter. So design script will be the coding interface that you will use in Dynamo. So if you're writing design script will only allow you to shorten up the nodes of Dynamo. So you can use it to create variables, but you will be in the same environment of Dynamo. That means you are in a control environment that you can only use it for mathematical options. When you go to Python script, you can connect to the Revit API, you can connect to other APIs, and you can create nodes that will mix and match things outside Dynamo and Revit. So perhaps my best recommendation would be start by by creating nodes. Maybe it will become efficient. Use a node to code option, and with that start learning how to code it by commands on design script. If there's something that Dynamo cannot do, I recommend you to check on Google if someone has created a similar node. If they haven't, now you can get into the terrain of using Python to find out how to get those elements out from the Revit API or from any other API that you wanted. Perhaps you want to connect with Project, you want to connect with Primavera, or you want to use any other one that has specific connections. You want to program to use Forge or to use something that goes web. You can use Python there. I mean, it's not going to be different the solution that all the nodes that have been created, they are working to Python. So if there's no solution, then you go to Python, and once you have it in Python, you can test it. If you have a clear workflow, now it's time to change it to the Visual Studio working with the Revit API, and with that, you can create a robust one that can actually work for thousands of people and do it on an industrialized way.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, there's one more thing, like we have the Revit API, and to customize the Revit API, we used to go for macros. And in the macros, we are basically can work on the 4 different languages, right? So these are the like Python, C#, Ruby, and the VB.NET. So like, which is the most widely used language you will suggest to work on and to practice and learn among these 4?
Well, it depends on your background, because if you're familiar with programming, perhaps Visual Basic or C# will be fine. Then if you're much more comfortable working with web services, Ruby will be good, or Python. If you are new, if you haven't worked with code, I recommend you to go to nodes in Dynamo. From there, go to design script. From there, go to Python. And once you have it in Python, you can go then. It will depend because of the way of programming between C# and Visual, but then you can start grasping those out. So remember that it's not going to be a one-man job. It will change depending on how the process needs to be fulfilled. But in that between, once you have proof that your script is working, now it can go into production. So what I'm telling you is that Dynamo is opening the doors of way of programming, but probably won't be the tool that you will be using on a daily basis on a long term, because you need to test the things, and testing takes a lot of time. The difference between programming on the API and programming in Dynamo is 1 to 10. So because of that, it will require a high investment creating an Revit API solution, and it's a low-cost investment doing it on Dynamo. But if you do it in Dynamo and you have already tested and now you know it's worth it, you can invest heavily in getting it on the Revit API.
Right. Yeah, there's one terminology that I have heard recently, and it was a long time back. Autodesk have introduced that. It was like the quantum, and they have the term of HFDM. Like it's being said that HFDM will be the future of the design, the CAD and BIM. Like, can you tell us or something about it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't get it properly.
Yeah, I'm talking about the quantum, the project quantum.
Project Quantum. Yes?
Next generation BIM ecosystem for the project quantum, and which we will be using the Forge and the HFDM, the hype, and you remember the future of
Yes,
CAD.
yes.
Recently they have released that article as well about the HFDM.
Yes. Yes, Project Quantum goes deeper on using the Internet of Things and mixing it with data and values that you're creating on programming interface. So if you have that on your overview, as I said at the beginning, you need to look for technological trends because you're working right now, but you need to think what's going to happen in the future up to 5, up to 10 years. Project Quantum, it's a really good option, but it's still going to take some time to get it working on a lot of companies. It depends on how BIM is really connected using Forge, using cloud services, using mixed things. And if we are looking at that, we need to have a clear path on how to get it there. We don't know if it's going to fit, if it's going to change the way, but still we need to have it on visibility. And Project Quantum, what it's doing is that it's connecting all services using web. And instead of creating stations or standalone versions of models, we're going to working on a collaborative way. So programming skills will be required and things like that need to be part of it.
Exactly. Yeah, there was one thing also, like
Sorry, I didn't get that one.
Flux, Flux, flux.io. It's a site extractor.
Flux, yes.
Exactly. Can you tell us like what actually happened with the entire team of Flux? Like they withdraw that product now.
Flux, I believe it was running about 2 years ago. I used Flux for having this translation between Excel, between Revit and elements that you can export it, send it to a cloud service and then going back. The problem with Flux is they didn't get enough critical mass to support that model because they were sharing a lot of information, but the charge or they didn't get quite well, so that's why they closed.
Okay.
It was really useful on that because it helped you instead of opening files, just to have an ID that it's on a web service. And then you can export it back and change it within the data. But I mean, things that happens.
Yeah, I think there are some other.
Before that, the question that you said about.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, and the other question that you asked about the name convention is because you have two files on Dynamo, that it's the one that it's running with the nodes and the scripts, and the other one that it's for node creation. So with that, you are actually creating nodes, set your own library, and publish it.
Right.
So if that's possible, what happens is that a lot of people publish, and you have a lot of nodes everywhere.
Right. So we'll take the questions from the participants, but before that I have a really big question in my mind, and I'll tell you the scenario of it. Suppose you are an architect and I'm an owner, and I come to you and ask you about that. I need to make a building like G+10 structure, and it's in a particular location in India, and I have the budget, I have the time frame fixed with me. Like, is it possible with the use of computational design or with the use of generative design, we can give, the architect can give the owner the different design options to help him maximize the efficiency and to help him save the amount of cost and time in terms of the design development, in terms of developing a conceptual plan or a model? So is it possible that we can propose the owner, and how?
Yes, it's possible, but the only thing, and the complex thing here, the tricky part of it, is that you need to understand your DNA of designer, so you can program it, have it as a way of working on your company, and with that you can use it to create those solutions. What I faced when I'm using generative design with architecture is that they are not quite organized on the way of creating their designs, of doing it on a way that they can reply and create the same type of compositions that are the reason they are hiring them. So because of that, it becomes difficult, because if you're changing your way of work from a project to another one, you need to invest generative design for each different type of approach. And because of that, you may not find the solution as fast as you will want. So it's possible. I believe generative design, it's still developing on those phases, and the best way of creating those solutions is to know better our ways of designing, or having at least on a company that says, okay, our design goes first for cost, then we will go for sustainability, we will go for these particularly architectural designs that we want to improve, so they can because we believe on them, we believe on the space. And those priorities set, you can set now the processes on which ones will go first, which one will determine the variables that the code will need, and then you can deploy your scenarios, and with those you can get it to your client. So as you can see, it's not a single solution. You will need to first understand what you want to teach the machine, then program the machine, and then you can use and get the benefits of those machine processes. It says, any prerequisites to learn Dynamo?
Yeah.
Well, you don't need something to learn Dynamo. The thing that you need is to understand how Revit works. I mean, I will suggest, at least before going into Dynamo, that you know how to model. And also, you know how to create a family, how to move within parameters, perhaps have created some views. I mean, you have a clear visibility on how Revit modeling works, and then you can jump into Dynamo. I'm setting here, it's the practical BIM link, and the link I share with you for the presentation, just gonna copy.
Right.
It's there in order, if you want a learning path clearly from point A to point B. That can help you to have an overview. And also, you can send questions. I mean, I'm just gonna share here my phone number in case. It may take a little responding, but always open to questions. It's good. So then I have next question that says, Dynamo or Grasshopper as a BIM manager or coordinator? Okay, I know Grasshopper can do a lot of things about that as well, and it's much more clearly for a path of design and developing. Personally, I will believe that I will find that Dynamo has a better structure within elements that can be built, and you're thinking always on elements that need to be a solid solution with an element, parameter, and ID, and that helps you when you're doing generative design or doing some automation processes to never lose that the geometries need to be possible to build. And also you have the facility that it already has built-in formats for quantities, for documents, and each single element will have an ID that encapsulates for other processes, for BIM platform, for connecting to the web, connecting to 360, whatever. So that, I think that will make the difference. The geometry you have learned in Grasshopper will help you in Dynamo, but you will need to have things differently within how the interface works and how everything gets. Then says, can Dynamo help in assessing the life cycle assessment buildings? Yes, you can use it like that. You can get the IDs of all the elements. You can connect it into Maximo. You can use it for coding, and then you can use it also on within a BIM Copy format. With that, I think you're trying to ask about facility management, life cycle assessment of buildings. So you can also use it to connect the links between the PDFs or the specs that you have it. You can use also an external URL on a web page. So it can modify your model when you're reloading, and that can help you see things getting maintenance. And if you're mixing it with Forge, you can also get those visibility settings on your website. I mean, there's a lot of things. Dynamo also can help you get this better understanding on how the elements are moving, are part of Revit. Then it says we need to learn Revit. First we need to learn Revit, then only we can work on Dynamo. That's what you're trying to say, sir? Yes. I mean, that's the recommended way that I can help you, that I can tell you. Because if you already know Revit, you know what you can get from Revit to Dynamo and Dynamo to Revit and outside. Just think that Dynamo is not as a single entity element. It's like a parasite living in Revit. And because of that, it needs Revit to get things out and in. You can connect from Excel files, you can connect from other, but at the end, it needs to go to Revit, or it can go to another file. So, and this says, can you use Dynamo to produce drawings from models? Yes, you can use it. You can use it for creating schedules. You can use it for create different views. You can use it for automate your 3D views and then getting specific crops from elements. You can use it for having tags on elements and check that nothing is getting, I mean, all those mundane things that take a lot of time, you can do it. But the only but that they have is that you need to be quite organized and create a path so that the computer understands what you're trying to do. So it's not just a thing that I don't want tags to be overplaced, but need to tell them how. I need first to place the tags that go from pipes, then the tags that go from fittings, and when you find a remaining space, place these ones. So you need to be really, really clear about it. You're teaching computers how to repeat things. Then it says, can we use Dynamo with AutoCAD? On the version 2020, you have Dynamo for Civil 3D, and I have checked it, and you can use it for Civil 3D elements and AutoCAD elements as well. So you can create the lines and do an export to AutoCAD. So that can work as well. Also, the most common ones, you can use an EFC, you can use SAT to get in and out elements, and then you can transform it to create it on Revit or to get it into another elements. Which programming languages? You don't need, for starting, you don't need to have a programming language. You can use it within the notes and using just the Dynamo Primer, which is this huge book of all the basic notes. Once you have those, you can get into Design Script. Design Script will take you not too much because it's just how to use notes on a convention and then just have some certain workflows for things like changing the way of the programming environment. And then if you go deeper, you need to go to Python. From Python, perhaps you will go to C# or JavaScript. I don't know. It depends on which path you're working and which type of solutions you are focused on. So then you have, is Dynamo able to work on point cloud? Not yet. I have made some runs within a project I had within, it was a recap point cloud, do it by a Faro laser scanning. Unfortunately, there's not still a way of opening the point cloud element you create on Revit or the reference, so you can read those points. And even if you get those points, you need to get a lot of normalized solutions and things. So still not quite a solution to get things from point clouds, but I mean, surely it can be something to be developed. I think that's it. Somebody has another question?
Yeah, I have a question, Enrique. Like, which are the resources from where we can get to learn about Dynamo? Can you tell us about like any sites or any blogs or resources or websites from where we can learn more about the application that you can recommend?
Yeah, well, you can start first.
Hmm.
My first recommendation is if you open a Dynamo, it has the Dynamo primer. The Dynamo primer is like the Bible of the Dynamo. I mean, it's the one that says step-by-step solutions to getting everywhere. But I mean, because it's a robust book, it's like it's not gonna work for just finding your solution. Then you have there also the sample content. The sample content will get you to get some general flows, but that doesn't actually solve the thing. That's, I mean, before getting my first script, I worked around Dynamo Primer, then I went into all the samples. And what actually does the difference is when you have something that you think you can do and try to do it. So my recommends is try to do something, try to create some exercise, or at least I have placed this set of classes so you can go step by step, or you can go on a easy pace learning things. If you want to go for analysis, if you want to go for modeling, if you want to go for geometry, for documents, so that you can say, okay, I have this challenge that is how to create this schedule. You need to use, you have the solution, but you can also create your own solution or do it differently. Okay? So you can get those, solve the problem, and at the end, that will start creating the pace it is on Dynamo. It's the only way of doing it is by need. It won't work to find and to learn everything by the book, because there are just too much information. It's impossible. Then we have sustainability assessments of buildings materials can be done by Dynamo. Yes, you have of Ladybug, and also you have the butterfly. So that means that you can get files from the characteristics of climate conditions. You can use those to create vectors, to create elements that can be read. I recommend you with that. There's one that it's about facades and elements. You can also, if you can export data from sustainability assets, you can use it to test and match with the elements, because on Dynamo you have a complete mathematical background. You can place formulas. You can set up points, vectors, things on the space. And with those, you can use those analyses to show up. You can also use the feasibility framework of Revit, that it's something that what it does is that it will shape, I think you have seen it, if you have done a light analysis, it shows up where the light goes and everything. You can use it as well from Dynamo to have color shapes on places that have shade, on places of raw materials, on places of noise, for smoke detection. You can mix it with CFD. CFD, it's for doing simulations. If your BIM processes require that you need to go with smoke detection, fluids detection. If air goes somewhere, you want to find out best spots, you can get those data from CFD, mix it with, use it some elements within the Revit modeling, and that can change. But I mean, that depends if it's something you need to use on your daily basis. And then says, can you please tell us more about career in using Dynamo and Revit, current scenario and upcoming opportunities through BIM? I believe that Dynamo is going to go deeper in all the things. If you have seen the Autodesk University this year, they no longer have things that goes about just modeling. Just modeling is just like a basic setting for the current market. So you're actually going deeper by requiring Dynamo things, even though if they are just things about modeling, things about production documents, but you are required because the market is pushing through that. They need to have these fast solutions of ways of creating things faster. And I don't see that it's, I mean, it's not, I think it's not optional, as BIM is part of every engineer, architect, and a basic stats. Now we're talking about having this next level of programming. Computers are going deeper. We need to connect better. And I think I don't have any other questions. And they have their own benefits and they do things. It depends on which suits to your return of investment, your execution plan, and how you will connect with all of those.
Right. So we'll take, like, is there any questions from the other participants?
Just lost the chat. Any other questions? No, that's the last one.
That's it. So like we can conclude this session, Enrique. So thanks a lot for you for joining this session and making this like it's like 9:30 a.m. there in Mexico, right? So you got to wake up early and
Yes, it's 10:42
10:42
Mexico at Sunday morning.
So it's like 9:12 here in India. And thanks a lot for coming for this session. I really appreciate the information that you have briefed us on the Dynamo and the different aspects that you can work on, like the civil, the architecture, the MEP, and the site information, Navisworks, and there are a lot of things that we got to hear from you today. So it was a very nice session to be with you, Enrique. Thanks a lot. Okay. So thank you.
No worries. It was my pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much as well.